The leadership and executives of the Emilio Aguinaldo College Cavite, conference organizers, plenary speakers, presenters, participants, and guests, good morning. I am Liberty De Leon. I am currently working with the Basis Conversion and Development Authority, or BCDA, under its Business Development Department. The BCDA is a government-owned and controlled corporation, or GOCC, engaged with land disposition to turn former US bases and military installations in the Philippines into economic zones. I am pleased to present my research entitled A Proposed Public-Private Partnership Financial Model for Real Estate Project, which is very much related to my work in BCDA. I guess you have heard so much about PPPs nowadays that are related to initiatives and government programs in addressing health crisis brought about by COVID-19 pandemic and affecting the entire world. The government turned to the private sectors for needed funds for emergencies to build swabbing centers and quarantine facilities. We witness how this kind of partnership is helping the Filipinos, especially those infected with the coronavirus, and seems to be working significantly in this instance. As the background of my study, you can see here I've listed down the contents of my study as I flushed it. I will, from time to time, interface with the discussions of what my study is all about. Again, the study gave an overview of what is PPP and its history. PPP is an agreement of shared risks and benefits out of development of government assets for public service delivery. In real estate development projects, public service is delivered by generating investments for the economy, jobs for the public, and revenues for the government. PPP's legal framework in the Philippines began with the 1990 Build, Operate, and Transfer Law, or the BOT, and its amendment in 1994, which eventually included the procurement, sales, joint venture, leases, and concessions of government assets. BOT schemes were used to build bridges, roads, school buildings, and utilities. But at present, PPPs are resorted to for other government projects such as real estate and urban development. For the prime movers, the local government units, or LGUs, the national agencies, and the government-owned and controlled corporations undertake PPP, which operates under a mutually agreed financial terms, which were based on financial models. These terms and financial models are what have been studied in this research, aimed at determining the general assumptions and other factors required to formulate and propose financial model. Various real estate projects through PP were identified as study cases. These study cases were the development projects of the BCDA that are mostly located in northern and central Luzon. And the Bonifacio Global City is also a BCDA project in Metro Manila. I have also here the application of a proposed financial model for a state-owned aviation school complex, which was drawn up based on a Master Development Plan, or MVP, proposed for a school complex in Tarlac. And this MVP is also a product of masteral research. And of course, for the conclusion and recommendations, I've listed down. But discussions will be highlighted at the end of this presentation. Okay. Looking at the Bonifacio Global City, the Clark Special Economic Zone, and the new Clark City, which had been highlighted because of the Southeast Asian Games held in 2019 in the Philippines, one may surmise that PPPs for real estate projects work. Yes, it does work, but there were also defaults and non-performance of contractual obligations that led to unrealized revenues for the government and delivered public service, and of course, dragging court cases and litigations involving PPP financial terms. And based on the available literatures on PPP financial model, there were no research that specifically examines the components and factors of financial terms and how these assumptions were arrived at to come out with workable PPP financial model for real estate development. As earlier mentioned, government real estate projects were identified as study cases in this qualitative study. This study involved examination of financial documents, agreements, and project-related reports that were looked at and examined. And key informant interviews were also conducted to validate the information gathered. Case profiling was made and indicated certain information used as part of the financial terms. These are the type of development, legal framework, property sizes, master development plan or MDP, and the minimum investment. The legal framework, which tell how the project was awarded to a private sector and what structure or operation would the projects have. Would it be under a lease or a joint venture or a mere concession? MDP, which gives phase to the development, also determines the minimum investment required. And for the results of this study, the slide shows that there are multiple variables and assumptions by which financial models are drawn. The standards ones are the basic and those applied according to the specifics of the projects. And in this slide, you will see the standard assumptions, which calls for variables such as MDP, the project cost, property sizes, legal structure, and revenue sharing. Revenue sharing at this point can either be a fixed income or a variable share. And on with for the another set of the assumptions that are specific for the projects. These variables would include the subsidy or the payment from the public sector to the private sector, which can either be a turnkey payments or a milestone payments, project completion, which calls for the construction period, financing sources and loan structure, project management, and share on the net income. These were just some few of the specific assumptions, but the financial models, as found out in the study, uses and applies assumption as many as applicable to the terms and conditions of the agreement. And on with the discussion, three basic points were found out and were the results of this study, which basically calls for the identification of the basic variables and the project specifics. Basic variables would call for use of standard assumptions, and the suppletory assumptions, or those that are specific to the project. And of course, we found out that out of this case study, there is a unique financial model because no two projects are exactly alike. And on the application, as you can see in this slide, the assumptions are divided into those that are based on the findings of the study and those that are specific to the projects. The sectors, the public and the private, and their contributions to the development. Land usufruct being the contribution of the government, and the financing and development and the operations and maintenance being the contribution of the private sector. For the assumptions, it calls for the use of the basic assumptions and the specific of the projects. And this application and this financial model were drawn up based on the master development plan or a concept master plan of a state-owned aviation school, which is also a research resulting research of a FieldSCA masteral study, and the assumptions are listed down here. For the conclusion, the study also listed down those conclusions and recommendations. Of course, we cannot do away with the property appraisal or the property valuation, which determines the project cost, and it sets the minimum investments and the basis of the entire financial model. For the recommendation, this has to be institutionalized because property valuation reflects the highest and best use of government assets in consideration of market conditions. And of course, the unique financial model, since we have found out in the study that there are no two projects that are alike. Of course, the assumptions would have to be used in this instance, the basic assumptions and the suppletory assumptions that are specific to the projects. And this is interfaced with the institutionalization of the master development planning, which will call for the full development potential of the property and probably may uplift the development standards that the Philippines currently have. And the master development planning would also call for the future proofing of the project, which would consider the sustainability, green design, and planning for disaster resiliency, including the effect of pandemics, especially at this point in our history, or in the world history, if you may call. And another conclusion would be, there has to be a full compliance with the relevant laws and regulations with the tender process and the property development planning, to include resiliency planning. And for the recommendation based on this conclusion, there has to be a review of existing laws and policies and standards, which, if undertaken, this will result to upgrade of our standards and guidelines based on research and development. And it has to be um, the research and development would have to be the basis for amendments or enactment of new laws and issuance of new policies and regulations. And with that, I leave you with my references, and I thank you.